Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Wednesday, August 9th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Wednesday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Miami Marlins taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Johnny Cueto and Graham Ashcraft are your starters. Now, we've talked about how Graham Ashcraft made a lot of improvements in his game recently. His last 5 starts, 3 earned runs or fewer all those games. He's pitching deeper into ball games. 14 innings combined. His last 2 starts, only 3 runs against the Nationals and a very tough Dodgers lineup. I like him in this spot against the Marlins team is struggling offensively right now, mostly against righties. 26th in OPS, 27th in isolated power in the last month. I think Ashcraft gives the Reds 5-6 good innings. Johnny Cueto has struggled as a Marlin so far, 0-3 with a 5.32 ERA. His last start wasn't too bad early on against the Phillies, but he ended with 4 earned runs and a homer in 6 innings of work. Back-to-back games now at 4 or more runs allowed, with a home run allowed as well. Give me the Cincinnati Reds here at Great American Ballpark on the money line. Next up, it's the Colorado Rockies taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Chris Flexen and Adrian Hauser are your starters. Chris Flexen's first 2 starts as a Rocky, he's gone 8 2/3 innings with 14 base hits, 8 earned runs, 9 total runs with 4 homers and 6 walks. I know the Rockies grabbed a W his last start against the Cardinals, but I can't trust him here on the road against the Brewers. Adrian Hauser's been pitching, well enough for the Brewers to win some games when he's on the bump. 3-2 in the last 5 starts, the Brewers are, and he has a 4-3 winning record overall this season. He's been better at home this year with a 3.67 ERA, so he may not be my favorite starting pitching option, but I do think he has the better lineup, the much better bullpen, and I like this matchup here for the Brewers offensively against Chris Flexen. So give me the Brewers here on the run line, laying those 1.5 runs. Next up is Texas Rangers taking on the Oakland Athletics. Jordan Montgomery for Texas, no official starter for the A's. And unfortunately for Wednesday's card, we see a few games where we don't have starting pitching information for one or both teams, but we get through it nonetheless here on the rundown. In this matchup, I'm leaning towards the Rangers here. Probably not going to be a great price, but Montgomery pitched well in his Rangers debut. 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. He's facing an Oakland A's team, and offensively in the last month hasn't been terrible against lefties. But still, this pitching staff, if it's a bullpen game, I don't like its matchup against one of the tougher lineups in baseball in the Texas Rangers. I'm leaning towards the Rangers here on the run line on the road. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Detroit Tigers. Bailey Ober for Minnesota, no official starter for Detroit. We know what we're getting from Bailey Ober. He's a guy that's going to go out there, throw a lot of strikes. When he misses, he rarely misses outside the zone. Usually it's inside the zone and down the heart of the plate. It's why we've seen him give up 5 home runs his last 3 starts. But he doesn't walk a lot of guys. No walks his last 4 games. Decent strikeout stuff. He's facing a Tigers team that has not really done too much against right-handed pitchers this season or in the last month. You look at the numbers, Detroit's 28th in baseball in isolated power against righties and dead last in team OPS with a high strikeout rate at 24.6%. So I like the matchup here for Ober. I think the Twins bats back him up. Give me the Minnesota Twins here on the money line. Next up, the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Dakota Hudson on the mound for the Cardinals. No starter for Tampa Bay right now. Not my favorite game on the board. We'll have to see who the official starter is for Tampa Bay or if it's going to be another bullpen game for the Rays. But I'm leaning towards the Rays here on the money line. Dakota Hudson had a really good outing his last start against the Twins. 7 innings, 3 runs, 7 strikeouts. The Cardinals went on to win that game 7-3. But Hudson overall this season, a 4.1 ERA and even steeper 5.25 expected ERA with a pretty steep 4.6 xFIP. The strikeout numbers aren't great. He also has some control issues with 3.42 walks per 9. I do think Tampa Bay, a tough lineup, will be able to get to him, especially because they play the best ball at home. And the Cardinals bullpen, gotta say, it is improving. As of late, in the last month, a decent ERA of 4.24, decent expected numbers. But this Rays bullpen in the last 30 days has the second best ERA in baseball. So I still think Tampa Bay has the advantage there. Give me the Tampa Bay Rays here on the money line at Tropicana Field. Next up, we see the New York Yankees taking on the Chicago White Sox. We're going to see Mike Clevinger on the mound for Chicago. No official starter for the Yanks. I'm going to lean towards the under in this game as Mike Clevinger has pitched really well at home this season and now overall this year a sub-4 ERA, but even better 2.1 ERA at guaranteed rate field through 30 innings of work. As of late, 3 earned runs or fewer in all 5 of his last starts. And, he's not somebody that's going to blow you away with strikeout stuff, but his control's been good. Only 3 home runs allowed his last 5 games. The White Sox are 3-2 in his last 5 starts. But I also don't love this White Sox offense. That's why I'm leaning towards the under rather than Chicago. As, in the last 30 days against lefties and righties, this team has not done too much offensively. So give me a lean towards the White Sox and the under here in Yankees-White Sox. Next up, the Washington Nationals and the Philadelphia Phillies. Michael Lorenzen and Mackenzie Gore are your starters. Mackenzie Gore's really struggled against these Phillies this season. 8 2/3 innings through 2 starts, 15 base hits, 10 earned runs, 2 home runs, so a 10.38 ERA and a whopping 385 opponent's batting average. Can't trust him here against the Phillies lineup. It's hit lefties pretty well overall this season. Lorenzen's pitching well. His first start as a Philly, he went 8 innings of work, 2 runs, and a 4-2 Phillies win. The Nationals hit lefties a lot better than righties, so I think this matchup benefits Lorenzen. Don't love really either of these bullpens right now, but I do think the Phillies do have the better bullpen with the better starting pitcher and the much better lineup. So give me the Phillies here on the run line. Next up, it's the Kansas City Royals taking on the Boston Red Sox. James Paxton and Jordan Lyles are your starting pitchers in this one. I'm going to go with the over in this game. You know, Jordan Lyles has been better recently than he was at the beginning of the season, but still, I mean, he's got a 6.24 ERA on the year and an even steeper 7.56 ERA on the road. His last game, even though the Royals went on to win that game, it wasn't because of Lyles. He gave up 5 runs, a home run, 8 base hits, and 5 2/3 innings. At Fenway Park against a very tough Red Sox lineup that hits righties well, I don't think Lyles really will put together that great of an outing. On the other side, James Paxton, a little bit concerning his last game, giving up 3 bombs against the Toronto Blue Jays in 5 innings of work in that 7-3 Red Sox loss. 9 base hits allowed as well, 4 earned runs. It was one of his weaker starts of the season, and he was pitching pretty well at Fenway Park up until that point. But now you're facing a Royals team that's made some improvements offensively in the last month. Against lefties, this is a very aggressive lineup. They don't strike out much, but they also don't walk much. A 3.3% walk rate in the last 30 days, but decent power numbers and OPS numbers as a team. I'm going to take the over here in Kansas City, Boston. I don't love this Royals bullpen either, so I think we'll get some runs early and late. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Christian Javier and Jack Flaherty are your starters. I would say 2 starting pitchers that going into the season had big expectations, but have been pretty disappointing or at least inconsistent overall with ERAs above 4. I'm going to lean towards the over here. I know when you look at both of these teams offensively against righties in the last month, kind of, a little bit at league average or a little bit below league average against righties, but we still know these are 2 very good lineups overall. Javier's had issues with his control, so has Flaherty, honestly. Javier's last start against the Yankees, he was only able to go 4 2/3 innings, gave up 3 runs, 2 home runs in that game, 3 walks again. And, the strikeout numbers have kind of been all over the place for Javier this season. Below a strikeout printing, not what I would want to see from a guy who I would consider a strikeout-dependent starter. I think the Orioles get to him. Flaherty, he pitched well in his Orioles debut, but before that he was struggling. I think the Astros will be able to get to him. And when you look at the bullpens, the Orioles bullpen has been pretty sturdy, so that's why I would lean towards the Orioles in terms of a side in this game. But when you look at the Astros, an ERA at 4.5 in the last month isn't great. The second highest Sierra in baseball behind only the Royals, which we know the Royals have one of the worst bullpens overall this year. Not great either. So I think we're going to see a high-scoring game. We see some runs early and late. Give me the over here in Baltimore, Houston. Next up, the Atlanta Braves and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Max Fried and Quinn Priester are your starters. I gotta say, Max Fried's first start back from the injury didn't look like he missed a beat in that one. 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, no earned runs, no walks, only 3 base hits, and an 8-0 Braves win. It's kind of a tough spot to be in, going on the road against a tough Cubs lineup that's hit lefties pretty well this year. Fried just looked amazing in that game. And he's facing a Pirates team that overall this season and in the last 30 days have struggled against lefties. They're dead last in baseball in ISO, dead last in baseball in team OPS. Their strikeout rate's just below 24% against lefties in the last month. I think they struggle here against Fried. I think Quinn Priester, who's got an ERA above 8, struggles against one of the best lineups in baseball. The price is not great because the Braves are huge favorites, so even laying 1.5 runs, you're getting negative odds, but it's the only choice for me in this one. Give me the Atlanta Braves laying those 1.5 runs on the run line. Next up, the Chicago Cubs taking on the New York Mets. Kyle Hendricks and David Peterson on the mound in this one. To me, this is a mismatch in terms, basically in every facet of the game. I've talked about how this team has the better lineup, better starting pitcher, the better bullpen, but this is another one of those games where I think Kyle Hendricks is the much better option on the mound. The Cubs bullpen as of late has been better, and Chicago's offense has also been a lot more trustworthy. Hendricks on the road this season, a sub-3 ERA through about 45 innings of work. Peterson has control issues. He's been better at Citi Field, with that's for sure, with a sub-3 ERA, but I just don't trust his control. I also don't think he's going to go too deep into this ballgame, so we're going to have to rely on this Mets bullpen, which in the last month has not been great. The expected numbers haven't been great. The ERA a little bit high at 4.32. Give me the Chicago Cubs here on the money line on the road. Next up, the Toronto Blue Jays and the Cleveland Guardians. Kevin Gausman and Logan Allen are the starters. Kevin Gausman's last start against the Orioles, he struggled early on. 3 earned runs. He was only able to go 4 1/3 innings. So, yes, he had 6 strikeouts, but he gave up those 8 base hits and 2 walks. And the Blue Jays have lost a lot of Gausman's games recently. He's 1-4. The Blue Jays are 1-4 in his last 5 outings, but I like him in this spot against the Guardians team and struggling offensively. Logan Allen is a lefty who has struggled to progress the field thus far with an ERA at 4. And the Blue Jays, even though this team was struggling against lefties early on this season, they've done a lot better in the last month. They're second in baseball in team OPS. They're also top 15 in isolated power with a very low strikeout rate at 18.8% and a very high walk rate at 12.5%. This is a good offensive matchup for the Blue Jays. Gausman should be able to bounce back here. Give me the Blue Jays here on the money line with the lean towards the run line as well. Next up, the San Francisco Giants taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Shohei Ohtani on the mound for the Halos. No official starter for San Francisco. Now, Shohei Ohtani has been pitching really well lately. His last 13 innings of work, he's got 12 strikeouts, no earned runs, only 4 walks with only 4 base hits allowed. And I think he pitches well in this game against the Giants team that struggled offensively in the last month against righties. I don't want any part of this Angels bullpen right now. We saw him blow another lead in the 9th inning against these Giants in the first game of this series. They've had a lot of those games recently, and it's one of the big reasons why they're not playing great baseball right now. But I do think the Angels will have a good chance to take the lead at the end of the first 5 innings with Shohei on the mound. So give me the Angels in the first 5, laying the half a run at home. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Bobby Miller and Merrill Kelly on the mound in this one. Now, when you go back to 2022, Merrill Kelly had a really good season on the mound, a 3.37 ERA in 200 innings. He had a 13-8 record, so a winning record for a losing team. Really impressive stuff. But the one kryptonite that he had in 2022 was these Los Angeles Dodgers. He struggled mightily against them. He faced them a few times as well. 5 starts, 24 innings, an 8.25 ERA. 32 base hits with 6 homers and 15 walks allowed, a .330 opponent's batting average. It was one of the big reasons why he didn't have a sub-3 ERA overall that year. Now fast forward to 2023, Kelly's pitching well for Arizona with a 9-5 record, a 3.21 ERA, and he's faced the Dodgers twice and has actually pitched well against them on paper. 9 1/3 innings, a sub-2 ERA at 1.93. However, a lot of base runners allowed in those games, 9 base hits and 8 walks allowed in 9 1/3 innings. So it tells me he's struggling to put away hitters. He's been able to get out of some jams, and that's why he's had good numbers on paper. But I don't really trust that going into this start, where Kelly has not been great at Chase Field. He's been better on the road this season, and the Dodgers are crushing righties right now. Number 2 in team OPS in the last month. Number 3 in isolated power. Very high walk rate, a very low strikeout rate. I think Kelly struggles mightily in this game. Bobby Miller is good enough, I think, against the Diamondbacks team. Is really struggling against lefties, righties offensively right now. Give me the Los Angeles Dodgers on the money line with a lean to the run line as well, laying those 1.5 runs. Next up, the final game for Wednesday's not-so-great card, in my opinion. It's going to be the Seattle Mariners and the San Diego Padres. No official starter for Seattle, as Brian Wu was supposed to go in this game, but he was just placed on the 15-day IL about an hour ago, so he will not be available. And Yu Darvish on the mound for the Friars. It's tough to know what you're going to get from Yu Darvish this season. As of late, he's been pitching pretty well. His last 2 starts against the Dodgers and Rangers, tough lineups there. 13 innings and only 2 runs, but both of those games were at Petco Park, where Darvish has been a lot better this season. On the road, a 4.86 ERA and about 50 innings of work. So, I don't know if I can trust Darvish in this game, but I know I don't really love this Padres bullpen right now. And Seattle, I do think if this is a close game late, has the advantage there. We'll have to see who the official starter is for Seattle. Could be a bullpen game overall, which I don't think would be a bad option for this pretty good bullpen. But a game I'm probably staying away from. I'll lean towards the Mariners here on the money line as the home team. And that's it. Those are the games for Wednesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.